Hello everyone and welcome to Halloween Terror. It just released and I'm now going to be doing my video for the Halloween hero concept. Yep, I've got 3 Halloween heroes ready and rearing to go. This video is going to be not coming out on this day that you can see. You can see for me it's obviously, you know, the 15th, or Halloween's just came out. But for you, this is going to be a bit later in the month, but all 3 of these videos will be released before October ends. So let's get to the practice range, and without further ado, let's just talk about the Halloween heroes. So I think something that I would like to get across with the Halloween heroes is that I'm doing this a little bit more for fun than actual balance. I'm not really too interested in making 2 balanced characters, but you know what, I make a bit of an effort to make them somewhat balanced. It's more the idea of the character and just how cool it would be for that type of character to be in Overwatch. So Halloween is the spooky time of year, and that means we're going to have spooky characters, and we're going to be starting with the tank. As you know, I tend to take ages on these videos in the past, or the first 2. And Mamiko for that matter. So I'm trying to shorten them, make them, you know, like half an hour, so let's get straight into it. There's not much lore to these characters, it's as simple as this. So we're going to start with the tank, and the tank is going to be called Howl. His name is Howl, so there we go. I mean, you could see his name in the title of the video, so if you really couldn't figure out what that name means, then I feel like that's on you. But yeah, his name is Howl. Howl is going to be the second, I'm going to call him a tempo tank, because they've called Ramatra a tempo tank. I don't understand the concept of tempo tank. I guess the idea is that, you know, he doesn't do much, he's not doing much, because this is limited poke, this is very immobile protection that only lasts for a short period of time, and this is a decent, good slowing ability, but it's, you know, not incredible, whereas this is like, oh, Ramatra is all go, this is Ramatra's time to do stuff. Ramatra did get nerfed this patch. He can no longer pierce barriers. If you want to see my opinion on that, there's a video on the patch where it got nerfed. Needless to say, I'm not a fan. It's just another unique interaction being removed from the game. You could say it's not fun for the Reinhardt, it's not fun for whoever else is up against the Ramatra, but you know what? Nothing's fun. People don't like getting one-shot by pin, people don't like solo shatter, people don't like monkey diving you, and then as soon as you're about to kill him, he pops primal, and then he owns you. There's a whole bunch of overpowered stuff that people don't like, but, you know, those things are all fine, and so is Ramatra going through barriers. Yes, it is one of those things that you go, oh god, yes, I feel really good having a shield here, but ultimately, deal with it. Learn to deal with it. It's not the end of the world. But anyway, I've got onto a rant about Ramatra, but yeah, Howl is going to be the second tempo tank, and the meaning of this is, of course, because Howl is a werewolf, and that means he's going to spend most of his time in his human form, and then a good portion of his burst of value in his werewolf form. I've gone a little bit extreme on this. I think I would tone down things a little bit, because the thing I don't like about Ramatra is he barely feels like a tempo tank, because although this is, you know, when he gets all of his value, when it ends, he's still, you know, it's only an 8-second cooldown, then it's back. In that time, you just pop a barrier, you can pick a corner. It feels like when he needs it, he will have pummel, but or nemesis form. So I've gone a bit more extreme, so let's start with the health. Howl is going to have 500 health, or 350 and then 500 in roll queue. But yeah, that is 500 HP, no armor, no shields. This man is wandering into the battlefield fairly naked. Very low health overall, not quite as low as Ramatra, although Ramatra has a bit of armor. So although he's 475, don't forget, 75 of that's armor, so maybe he's got a bit more than Ramatra, but he's also a little bit smaller than Ramatra, so if I was to estimate his size, honestly, I'm thinking just a bit bigger, like a bigger Reaper. Think of a bit of a bigger Reaper, but not quite Ramatra. Probably, maybe Zaya's a fair size. Probably about a Zaya, maybe a little bit. Yeah, we'll go with a Zaya-sized individual. So yeah, that's 500 health. His passive is Wolfsblood, so this is going to be quite huge, and this is why he can get away with only 500 health and no real defense, to be honest with you. Wolf's Blood means that he receives 25% more healing from all sources, including from passives. This is going to include a passive that I'm going to bring up later, and it's also going to include the passive that everyone gets. You know, when they take damage, after 5 seconds they heal up. He will actually regenerate faster, so from that. So 25% more healing from all sources. That is nearly as big as an Annonade that's just on him all of the time. So, you know, this guy is really easy to keep healed up. And that's kind of how he's going to survive quite a bit, because he does not have a defense, unlike a load of other characters. Now, maybe I'm thinking that he's going to be able to get away with this in a world where, you know, D.Va is, you know, just, you know... But maybe he needs a bit more. I don't know. For now, that's what it is. Also, upon using transformation, let's just we'll come back to that. He receives 50% more healing from all sources for 8 seconds. So when he transforms, which doesn't mean anything right now, but when he transforms, this passive Wolf's Blood will double to 50% additional healing from all sources for the 8-second transformation duration. This is going to make him quite easy to heal and keep up. I mean, if you think that 50% more healing, you know, that is a lot of extra healing. If you have a Mercy on you, she heals... Does she heal 65 now? I'm not sure. If she healed 60, she's now healing 90 per second. If it's 65, then it's not 92.5. It's roughly the same. So that is still a significant additional healing. That's like having an additional Zenyatta also healing. So pretty big deal. And also, upon using Night Howl, he will also gain 50% more healing from all sources for 4 seconds. So to be absolutely crystal clear, these don't stack. If you use Night Howl and Transformation at the same time, it's just going to last for 8 seconds. The duration doesn't stack, and the strength doesn't stack. If you use them one after the other, then you will get 50% more healing for 8 seconds, and then 4 seconds on using Night Howl. They do not stack duration or strength. So his second passive, which is buffed by his first, is Bloodhunt. This will heal him for 8 health per second, and if you include that with his passive, that means he gets 10 health per second, just naturally. That's Bloodhunt. He just heals over time. It's a very small amount of health. 10 health per second is pretty tiny, but it is consistent, and it's going to be going on throughout the entire match. Not only that, this isn't even the end of Bloodhunt. This will increase to 16 health per second if there's a bleeding target. Now, I'm going to just quickly specify a lot of my characters are going to have bleeding, and I have made them actually interact with each other, which means that if another character bleeds someone, then Bloodhunt will activate. So as an example, I know you can't have 2 tanks, but if you had Junker Queen, that is a bleed, and so that will actually increase Bloodhunt's healing to 16 per second, which, given his base passive, will actually be, my gosh, numbers, 20 health per second if there's a bleed-in target. And, of course, if any other bleeds get introduced into the game, maybe I've even missed a bleed. I'm sure there's one more somewhere, maybe? There's got to be one more somewhere, right? Let's have just a quick gander before I waste too much of our lives. No, there isn't, is there? Well, okay, well, Junker Queen would work, but, yeah. Bring 6v6 back. That's all I could say. And also, Howl can see bleeding targets through walls. So his passive will heal 8 per second, or 10 per second, or 20 if there's a bleeding target. But if he's got his Bloodhunt active, then it will actually heal 12 health per second. Not Night Howl or Transformation, it will be 12 health per second, and if there's a bleeding target, it will go to 24 health per second. So, if there's a bleeding target, this is now a significant heal over time. I don't think it's as big as Junker Queen's, but he can, as you're going to discover, he can bleed targets much easier than Junker Queen can. Junker Queen has to either hit a skill shot or play quite aggressive with a hit like so. Let me see how much health she gets back. So it was 130, and after the end, it's 205. So that was 75 health over about 3 seconds. 25 health per second, sound about right. So he's about the same as her, but he can do it much more easily. So let's get on to his primary fire, which is the Serrated Crossbow. No crossbows in Overwatch thus far, and I felt like a guy, an unhinged werewolf, he's not going to have a very, you know, sophisticated weapon. This guy just picked up what was close by, and the Serrated Crossbow will fire a heavy crossbolt which travels rapidly at 90 meters per second. I think I tried to imitate roughly Hanzo's flight time. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't remember now. It was actually a while ago since I did the first weapon. And it deals 70 damage with just 50% headshot multiplier. This only carries 1 bolt, and after shooting once, you need to reload it for 2 seconds. So this is quite a slow weapon, and it's also a incredibly weak weapon. This is clearly not designed to be his, you know, his actual damage mode. The idea is you shoot a bolt, like so, but it's only going to do 70 damage and 105 damage on a headshot, and then you have to take 2 seconds. I mean, let me just do that. Ready? 0, 1, 2. Maybe I was a bit slow there, I don't know, but you can see that entire time. That is a low DPS. Even if we presume you get full headshots, that is only going to be a 52.5 effective DPS. That is one of the lowest DPSs of any weapon in the game, and even Winston has got a higher DPS, and Winston's is AoE. So this crossbow is a piece of crap, basically. It's garbage, but it's part of his primary fire kit. And of course, if you get a hit, that's 105 damage instantly, and he does have further support for this burst. So next is his alternate fire, which is Puncturing shot. This releases it's just another crossbow shot. It's really as simple as like Hanzo's recon arrow. It does the same thing, or same type of arrow, except this, none of his shots need to charge up, by the way. Hanzo, obviously, you have to hold left click to charge it up. His, you just tap it and it fires at full power, like a crossbow does. The Puncturing shot will fire an additional projectile. This one's faster, 120 meters per second. It's designed to be much easier to hit, and it will do 20 damage and apply hemorrhage for 2 seconds, which does an additional 20 damage per second. So, let's just think about this. This is an arrow, which will shoot, and it will pass through all targets that it hits, doing 20 damage to them immediately. So 20 damage is very insignificant. If I was to show you a melee attack, this is doing, I think melee is a 40 damage now. This is doing way more damage than this arrow does. But you can obviously shoot it from range. But then it also does 20 damage per second for 2 seconds, which is 60 damage. Still not that great, but then you think, okay, well, it passes through all targets. Kind of like Orissa's spear, I think. Does it go through all targets? I don't think it does. I can't think of a projectile that goes through all targets. There probably is one. Kind of Junker Queen's knife, but I really think there's got to be... Oh my gosh, as if I didn't just think of that. Like that. Except it's an arrow and travelling much quicker and much harder to dodge. But obviously, you know, 20 damage versus Reinhardt's, you know, 100 or whatever it is nowadays. So, the other massive detail to this bleed, because it lasts for 2 seconds. It's not a long bleed. It's called hemorrhage, which is like a bleed that can't stop, but... Well, that doesn't stop, but it only lasts 2 seconds. We don't worry about that. Anytime a target with hemorrhage takes damage, will refresh the duration of the bleed. So this means that if anyone damages the target that has puncturing shot applied to them, the bleed will have its duration reset to 2 seconds. This means that once you hit them with it, anytime they take damage, it's back to 2 seconds. So if you hit them with it, 1 second passes, they take 20 damage. But then if you melee them, well, it's back up to 2 seconds. And so this bleed can actually last as long as someone... It can last forever, basically. As long as someone keeps damaging the player, the bleed will never drop off. This only has a 3-second cooldown as well. And it can be fired in between reloads. So the idea is that his crossbow is going to have a additional chamber on the underside, which will reload sort of by itself. And you can fire, so what you can do is you can fire a shot and then shoot an additional shot from underneath, and it won't interrupt your reload. So yeah, you can left click and right click, it will not interrupt your reload at all, which means that, you know, whilst you're, so if I was to use Sojourn as an example, whilst I'm reloading this gun, I can right click and it won't interrupt the reload, whereas obviously with Sojourn it's going to interrupt the reload. But with this guy, with Howl, the crossbows can be reloaded whilst he shoots an additional shot, which makes it a freebie shot. It's meant to feel like a little bit of a, you know, bam, like that, bam. But it doesn't even really interrupt the main shooting. So yeah. The first ability is Transformation. This is going to be the key part of his kit, and is obviously what is going to get him compared to Ramatra the most. So, you become let me read it actually, I'm sorry, but yeah, it's claw away at your flesh as you become wolf. Gaining increased movement speed, damage, and health. So, you actually have to incapacitate yourself for 3 seconds before you can do this. So, this is a bit of a downside to this, essentially. It takes 3 seconds for you to actually do this. However, there is a minor detail with this, which is that if there is a bleeding target, so if you've put bleeding, then it only takes 1 second. So it's very much quicker.
I will tear victory from your
Well, 3 times quicker. No, you know what? Let's stop there. So yeah, it's either a 3-second cast or 1 second if there's a bleed-in target somewhere on the field. It doesn't even matter if you bleeded them, if you applied bleed to them, or if it was someone else. So long as there's someone bleeding, it's 1 second. When you're in wolf form, you become a werewolf. This is going to be a much bigger model, somewhere on the size of Ramatra, who still... I wish you could emote in this form. At least have, like, an emote. You know the way that Baby Diva has an emote. But anyway, and you will get down on all fours, and you are charging towards them. You gain 300 extra max health. It's not armor, it's just health. In the same way Ramatra gets it, except Ramatra's is armor. So Ramatra does have more defense in that regard. But you've also got to factor in that Ramatra's got armor. He can use this much more often. And Howl does start with 500 health, whereas Ramatra only starts with 475. I guess it doesn't sound too bad now, but also Ramatra can block. Ramatra has a barrier in between, whereas Howl doesn't really have anything in between these sort of these bursts of play. So he also moves 25% faster, and he will trade his primary and alternate fire for Ravaging Claws. The form will last 8 seconds, and each time he takes damage whilst in this form, it will extend the duration by an additional second, up to an additional 4 seconds. Now, the big thing with this is it has a 20-second cooldown, which means that, you know, if no one attacks you, this is on a 12-second cooldown, which is quite long, considering the rest of his kit is quite bad. But the important thing is, if you do get attacked, the duration will be extended to 12 seconds, and when it ends, you will only have 8 seconds left of the cooldown, which is comparable to Ramatra. So I think that's an interesting dynamic, the idea of do you shoot the wolf or not. I think most players, you just shoot the wolf, because ultimately 800 health is not that much. That can get shredded very quickly by focus fire, particularly at higher ranks, and particularly if a Zenyatta is on the team. So, what is his primary fire? His primary fire is called Rip. He swings in a 3-meter radius, which does 65 damage to the target, and will swing once every half a second. This is AoE as well, so think of it very similar to Reinhardt's swing. Just make it a little bit less range, and then make it swing twice as fast, and you've got roughly the Rip here. Rip will do 130 DPS, so that's much higher than Reinhardt can do, but you would expect that. It's literally, he only gets this form for between 8 and 12 seconds, whereas Ryan gets it all the time. Now, Ramatra has the advantage of much greater range with his basic attack, with his transformed basic attacks, so I think that that's significant. And I also think that Ramatra's used to go through barriers, which was also a big deal, whereas now he doesn't, so it's not quite so big of a deal, but I'm not really, I'm opposed to this change. The secondary fire, or alternate fire of transformation, is Ravage. Ravage will leap forward 30 meters in 1 second, so this is quite a big jump. I can't really describe it as well, but I see it as somewhat similar to a Winston jump. So this is 20 meters. You can see that you can go up to 30 meters. So from here to over there, it's quite long. And you'll have control over how far you'd like to jump. I don't really like to say it, leap and dash, but I'll start with the first comparison. It's similar to Winston Leap, but it's Winston Leap if you jumped like this. You see what I mean? Now, it goes further than Winston Leap in that case. But Winston can obviously go like this, right? Howl can't. So if Winston wants to go up here, he can. But think of Howl's leap as not like that at all. Think of it kind of like Judo meets Winston's jump. It's like that. You jump, and then it dashes you forwards. I guess think of it similar to like a Junker Queen kind of ult-in. Kind of. Because Junker Queen doesn't really go up. Now, obviously, all the pros are going to find loads of cool spots where you can, you know, do this kind of stuff. But imagine Howl's ult. Sorry, not ult. The Ravage as something like this.
Time for the reckoning!
Like that. Except, I mean, yeah, it's actually really similar to that. Except a bit higher. And you've got a bit more leeway, so if you do flick it upwards, it goes a little bit higher. But the idea is that it's supposed to be more of a dash than a jump. So in my description, I've got leap and dash forwards 30 meters in 1 second. That is the idea. It's supposed to sort of be like, you know, double jump, dash. But not double jump, but like jump into the air and dash. But it's all in one motion. So the two things that will happen is you will rise up a bit and then move forwards 30 meters. That's the idea. You do 40 damage to all targets that you strike, and where you land in a 5-meter radius, and you will apply Ruptured Veins to them, doing 20 damage per second for 4 seconds. So this is a bleed, essentially, and the idea is simple. It allows him to apply bleeds to enemies whilst he's in werewolf form. And something to note about Ruptured Veins is that this does not get its duration reapplied. So this is just 80 additional damage over 4 seconds, which I think is perfectly fair. It's got a 5-second cooldown, so he can use it quite often. He can use it twice during this form. But he won't be able to use it a 3rd time unless you hit him quite a bit, in which he can use it up to 3 times. That's essentially the idea. Maybe I think a 3-second duration for the bleed might be okay, but I'm going to say 4 seconds for the moment because I'm happy with that number. And, yep, you can deal with it, I suppose. But yeah, this is designed to be his mobility to get him in and out. Now, he's quite vulnerable, but that is quite a fast movement and dash. So the idea is hopefully he can sort of be quite hard to nail. But yeah, it could just get to the point where he just jumps in and then explodes. I can absolutely see that happening. He does receive an extra healing, so you would maybe you would only want to partner him with teams or supports that could keep up with him. Like Kiriko could be on the flank waiting to zip in and heal. Anna can heal from a distance. You get the idea. You wouldn't want maybe like a Mercy, because you just sort of pull her in and she gets focused and killed. Maybe I mean, who would actually want a Mercy? You wouldn't really want Lucio. I guess you could do Lucio, but not Kiriko. Judo's probably better because you just send him in there and say, good luck. And then you can heal him from a distance. I'm just checking out the... Well, that fall off is kind of steep, isn't it? That's much worse than it used to be. I think that's quite a big nerf to Juno. I can see her doing pretty well, but... she was doing pretty well, but seems a little steep. Might be justified. I definitely know she was quite good, so I'm not I can't argue too much. But anyway, let's not get distracted. But yeah, that's Howl. And his next ability after transformation is Night Howl. So this is probably his biggest defense that he has. He's going to howl. I know, crazy. Which will do 50 immediate damage to enemies within 20 meters. There will be a bit of a fall off, so at the edges it will only do 25 damage, but they'll all be damaged. Anyone who is damaged is slowed by 50% for 3 seconds, and they will do 25% less damage to Howl for those 3 seconds. This is his main defense. It obviously relies on him getting into the enemy group. He can use Night Howl in both forms, so he could just use it to, somewhat animate himself. That is an actual strategy you could do with it, but it's primarily designed, if the enemy pushes you, you can howl at them, and then they all do less damage to you, and they all get slowed. Makes them more vulnerable, gives your team more opportunities to strike them, and gives you, some nice damage mitigation against people that you've managed to hit within the Howl. Unfortunately, it doesn't protect Howl against stuff that's managed to stay away from 12 meters. But 12 meters is quite a decent range. If I just show you, here's the 15, 10, 11, 12, round about here-ish. You can see that's how close you're going to have to be to him, which is, a fair distance. If you're any further though, well, tough luck to Howl. So that's Night Howl. 12-second cooldown on that ability because that's quite a peak in value, I think. And finally, his ultimate, the Wolf's Hunger. So he will transform immediately and prepare to jump for 1 second. I know I keep bringing up Junker Queen here, but it literally is exactly this. You will immediately transform into a wolf, and then you hold still for 1 second. I think she's still for less than 1 second, but he does it for 1 second, and then he will leap 30 meters in 1 second. So think about exactly this, basically. If he collides with an enemy hostile, he will pin them to the ground. Whilst they are pinned to the ground, he will drain 25% of their health per second for 4 seconds, and after this ends, transform into the wolf for 8 seconds, and if you kill a target, you will transform into a wolf for 12 seconds. The idea is simple, and I don't know how much people will like it, but you know what? These are horror this is a horror character, it's a horror hero concept. It's supposed to be terrifying. The idea is, instead of Junker Queen dashing through you when you become anti-naded, he will collide with the first target he hits, bam, and pin them to the floor. Both targets are stuck. You can just shoot him. But Howl is going to drain 25% of that target's health per second for 4 seconds. So if he pins poor old Tracer here, actually let's not do Tracer. If he pins Reaper here, he is going to be draining Reaper of about, 75, 150. 225. Yeah. Of about 75 health he's draining from Reaper per second. Reaper has 4 seconds to live. He's got no opportunity to fight back. He's pinned to the ground. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh, well that doesn't sound fun for Reaper. And you're right, it doesn't sound fun for Reaper. But you know what else doesn't sound fun for Reaper? Reinhardt just earth-shattering him and instantly killing him. Roadhog ulting and then just bullying them into a corner. Winston ulting and then just bullying them into a corner. Hammond wrecking balling you and then immediately doing all of the mines so that you're in the middle of them. Xayah grabbing 1 or 2 people and killing them. There's a whole bunch of ults which are all very effective and very rude if they're used at one person and just kills them. I think this is reasonable. You give the enemy team 4 whole seconds to react to it. And if anyone's like, oh, but it's, you know, the lack of skill, there's no opportunity to fight back. What are you supposed to do if Reinhardt slams you? And before you say dodge it, he stands still, Wolf stands still for 1 second before leaping. And yes, he can aim where he's going to go, but the point is, you have a whole second to get the hell out of the way. I think that that's enough time for you to say, we need to move right now. And if you get hit, well, if you're with your team, they could just bail you out. If you get healed, you're only going to take 100% of your max health. So any heal whatsoever will save your life. 25% of the health per second, and it will last 4 seconds. That means that if all that happens is whilst you're on the floor and you're pinned to the ground, if the only thing that happens is, you know, Mercy just taps you, and like, if Mercy just goes like that, you'll be well, you'll get back up. He'll immediately kill you afterwards, but you will not die if anyone heals you in any capacity. Also, Howl is completely vulnerable to crowd control. You can just sleep him out of this. You can stun him out of it. You can hack him out of it. And people can just shoot him, so Howl can't just use this in the middle of anywhere. The other thing that is noticed that I will just say is Howl can choose to end this ultimate early. So if all he wants to do is get back into wolf form immediately, the same way that Ramatra can use his ult to immediately get into his nemesis form, Howl has the full power just to say, let me use this just to get into wolf form and then cancel the pin so that he doesn't have to actually bother pinning anyone and, you know, die immediately. So that's what I would say. I think this is a cool ult. I think I like the idea of just sort of, you know, eating someone and killing them if they're on their own or if no one's able to help them. I think it's cool. And, you know, if you're like, oh, it doesn't feel fair that he just kills me. Well, he kills you once every, what, 3 minutes because he has an ult? Okay, that's a bit long. Once every 2 minutes because of an ult. I'm sure you'll get over it, right? Like, it's not that big of a deal. You died once. You know, if an Alari ults and it hits you, and then you're just gonna die, right? Like, well, not necessarily. You know, Genji chose you. You know, McCree high nooned you. Sorry, Cassidy high nooned you. Soldier, you know, your ego will survive till tomorrow, right? Like, it's fine. So yeah, that's how. Maybe he's a bit silly. Maybe the long cooldown of his form is going to be quite inhibiting. I mean, if no one attacks you, you just 12 seconds on cooldown. I might up that cooldown. I don't even know. I don't know. I don't think I was thinking too much about it. I think I just thought a werewolf that sort of leaps at people and bleeds them would be really awesome. So here he is. Tell me what you think. This is more of a Halloween bit of fun. But obviously, if you think that there's anything insane with the balance, if you want to write it in the comments, then that's absolutely perfectly fine. I am trying to make these characters balanced. I think he's fairly similar to Ramatra, but he's just got, in my opinion, much more power in his ult, because he can, you know, move much quicker, whereas Ramatra, you know, he leaps at you, right? That's quite powerful. Like, if you think Winston has just one leap, and that makes him, like, one of the most mobile tanks that can get around really well. I think that that's a big deal. Whereas Ramatra, you know, he runs a little bit quicker. Okay, you can still see him pop it. You can still see him trying to set up for it. It's much easier to predict. So I think this is a much more powerful transformation. And I think his ult is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with his ult, but maybe I'm insane. But yeah, overall, that's how. I hope you enjoyed. This went on a little bit longer than I hoped to, so we're going to end it immediately. Thank you so much for all your support. Whatever it is, I don't even know, to be honest. But I would like to keep making these videos just for fun, to be honest. So I hope you're enjoying them as much as I'm enjoying making them. And I wish you all a happy Halloween and a good October. See you later, everyone.